What's up? How y'all doing? It's Lugermonger. This time I'm talking about the H&K Conspiracy, which is an aptly named knife due to the fact that it has some contributing factors that make it extremely useful and very purposeful for its intended purpose, which is obviously, military, tactical use, defensive role, and the same contributing factors that make it good for that make it very unlikely choice for a utilitarian EDC role or, just general hard use. What I'm talking about, most of all, start off with the blade here, is the handle. The handle shape itself is, I almost want to say, extreme. It doesn't have too much, you look at it and it doesn't have too much of a flare, it doesn't grab your eye like, some of the crazy alien style, shapes and things do now, a lot of knives that are out there, but it is odd. It's very wide, it's very thick, 0.7 inches thick. The choil is the only thing out, for ergonomics besides the actual, the curvature of it. The only feature that it has is that massively thick choil. Now, what this does is make it have a very, very nice grip. The grip on this blade is fantastic in that it in any sort of penetration, any sort of, retracting movements. I have a fantastic purchase on this knife. I have a fantastic grip on this knife. It's not going to move in almost any sort of maneuver that I'm going to be doing with this in a, fighting situation, in a defensive task. It's not going to go anywhere. It's locked into my hand. But look at my hand. This is just from it is not a comfortable knife. It almost hurts your hand to give a good purchase to. So it's not something you're going to want to use to cut open material. It's not something you're going to want to use, for an extended period. But when you do want the grip, when you need it the most, it's there, and it's not going anywhere. This thing locks itself into your freaking hand. It's not that it feels bad. It actually feels pretty good in the hand, but it's just not comfortable at all. I do have big hands, and that's one thing I would say, is that this knife does lend itself, I believe, to a larger hand just because of how wide it is, and it's a thicker girth on the handle, so it is a little, it is suited more for a larger hand. The blade length is 0.48 inches, or 4.8 inches, 0.48, 4.8 inches. You can see the grind here. It is reprofiled. I'm going to get into that in a minute. The blade steel is a 9CR13 MOV, and the weight on this knife, I'll get into the steel as well, but the weight on this is 11.22 ounces. So this is a heavy knife. 4.8 ounces, or 4.8 inch blade. 4.2 inch handle, which is interesting, but it's 11.22 ounces. This is a very heavy knife. Now, I've removed the handle scales themselves. They're G10 texturized G10 handle scales. It's got a great, almost like tire tread traction. If I can actually get this to focus in here. The actual surface material, not just the grooves, the entire surface, the actual top section, the plateaus of those little peaks there are actually textured themselves. So the scales are done fantastically well. They are removable, and the interior here is not skeletonized. It is just a solid slab of steel. The only holes to speak of are the lanyard hole here, and then the holes drilled for the actual, the mounting hardware itself. Other than that, this is just a solid slab of steel, and it has a fantastic balance point. The balance is directly in the choil. It's a very nice balance point. It's right where it should be. You can see the amount of movement that I can do, and it doesn't go anywhere. So it's got a fantastic balance point. Very quick, very easy to maneuver in hand, very easy to switch up. But it's extremely heavy. Not extremely heavy, but for something with a 4-inch blade, I carry a fixed blade on me majority of the time, and right around 4.5, 4.5, 5 inches is my preferred length, but 11 ounces is getting ridiculous. But at the same time, for this knife's intended purpose, which is a tactical military use knife, 11 ounces, you can use this thing. I wouldn't actually suggest using this thing. That's another thing, like a fist pack. For pommel impact, it would be great, but for actual, like if you're going to be using it as a fist pack, it's going to do some damage. It's going to break your fingers. To say I wouldn't do it, if I had the option in that scenario, if I have the opening for a shot, I'm probably going to take it, because I don't think it's going to do that much damage, but at the same time, if I broke my pinky upon impact, I wouldn't be surprised. It's not going to break anything up here. I can already tell that. That's going to be a good impact, but there's just some flexibility issues here, if you can see that. Kind of off subject. Now, when I purchased this knife, the grind angle was horrendous. What I mean by that, the secondary bevel to the actual cutting edge was sitting at like 50 degrees. I'm not even joking. It was ridiculous. It was abrupt to the point where I could not sharpen this thing to get a good edge on it. I could get a cutting edge, but nothing respectable. It could not take a proper edge. I actually had to refinish. You can see my crappy refinishing job here, reprofiling the entire knife. But I had to reprofile the entire edge way back. The original secondary bevel here was short. It was probably half the length of this bevel that I've got on here now. So I had to take that angle back a good amount, just to get a proper cutting edge on here. It is sharp now. There's some dings and dents. I did take this out and beat it onto a tree when I was, done with it, just to see. So that 9CR13 doesn't hold the best edge, but it definitely takes a decent edge. It's a very, very heavy carbide edge. It won't take the finest edge, but it's a very grainy edge. It's got a good carbide structure, so it does give a good cutting ability. Now the handle, something that's not. No, sorry about that, hitting the tripod. But something that you don't see on a whole lot of fixed blades is the handle is actually shorter than the blade length itself. The blade length is 4.8 inches, and the handle length is 4.2 inches. Gives a 9-inch exact on 9-inch overall length, but it's not unheard of, but it is on the rarer side, and I definitely like that, because this knife feels very good in hand. It's got a confidence level to where I do have a confidence that this knife will be able to do whatever task you put in front of it, as long as that is intended purpose. The Tonto isn't heavily reinforced, but being a 0.2 thick inch blade stock, it does have a decently stout tip for the blade. Again, 11 ounces. You think that it could have maybe a little bit more reinforcement to that tip if they brought that flat out just a little bit more. But I do like the swedge on top. It does give a nice ability for penetration. You can just tell by kind of looking at it, that it will be a nice penetrator. The jimping on top, the ramp is very purposeful. It's got a good purchase. It doesn't feel like I'm going to be sliding up, but the actual jimping itself is pointless. It's rounded. It doesn't give any purchase to your finger at all. It's almost purely aesthetical. The ramp is not. The ramp is nice. It does work, but the actual jimping itself is just there for show. It's not going to do a whole lot. The sheath, yeah, I love the sheath for what it is. Obviously could be better, but it's extremely light. I mean, this thing weighs nothing. You can see the way I've got it set up here just with a molly strap. And something that I've done is actually put a piece, or it's just a zip tie here. You can see I've drilled a couple holes in it and ran that zip tie around just to give it a closer hold to my belt line. And so, yeah, because it is a very heavy knife, and a lot of the weight is in the handle itself. And the sheath, the way I like to carry is about right here. You know what I mean? So I do have a good amount of handle exposed above my actual belt line, and with it tends to rock quite a bit on your belt, just due to how much weight is sitting up top. So I've mounted that there just to give that little extra bit of stability. As well, I've drilled a hole in it, which I think is kind of necessary, just due to the fact that it's a polymer sheath, so it's going to hold water, and it's got a very big lip. Even with the blade in the sheath, you can see how much inlet there is for moisture, for water. So the drainage hole on the bottom, I think, is kind of necessary. But it has a very nice fit. There's no rattle this way. If I hold the actual sheath, or it does rattle just a bit, but it's not anything to worry about. It does have a very good release. How I like to do this, I can actually just give it a pull. But how I prefer to do it is I'll use my index finger here, just give this little flap just a little bit of a lift, and see if I can actually do this on camera. It'll deploy the blade just very simply. So I really do like the sheath. It did take some breaking in. It was a bit hard retention, you know what I mean? To actually pull it out originally was a bit tough. It did take some playing with, some time to get it broken in, but now that it does fit very well, works very well, holds the knife well, so I like it. But this, I believe, has been discontinued. If I didn't give you, I'll just do the overall specs. 4.8 inch blade, 0.2 inches thick. The MSRP is $85. And the handle length is 0.42 inches. The handle thickness, is 0.7 inches. The overall length is 9 inches. It's 9CR13 MOV stainless steel. It's a 14101 H&K Conspiracy from Benchmade. I definitely like this just chunky, beefy knife. It's like a fat kid knife, man. I love it. It gives you a good confidence. Big, heavy, chunky H&K. Y'all have a good one.